Welcome to my channel, and I'm back with you once again with another video of Microsoft Flight Simulator 24. This video is a complete tutorial of Enable's Airbus A330 in which I will take you through all the procedures like how to start this plane from the cold and dark state, how to fly this plane on autopilot, and how to perform an ILS approach and landing. Every time when I'm making a video, I'm making it for the beginners, so that's why I will just try to keep things really simple and to the point. And I have divided this video into different sections, so if you want to skip to any of the part, you can do that. So today I will be doing the short flight from Qatar to Dubai. It's a very short flight, and that's it. I'm at Hamad International Airport. This is the cockpit, and if you look up, this is the overhead panel, and you will be controlling the fuel flow from this panel, and plus the lights, the electrical systems. Then this part of the plane is known as the FCU, which is in the middle, flight control unit. It actually interacts with the flight management guidance system, and you can set different modes of flight for the autopilot from this panel. Then on the left hand side, on the right hand side, you have EFIS, which is electronic flight instrument system, and you actually control the display, which is over here, which is also known as the navigation display, that which information to show over here on the screen, and plus also adjust the altimeter. Now there are screens, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 screens. So this is the primary flight display, this is navigation display, and similarly on the right hand side you have the primary flight display and the navigation display. These two screens are known as the ECAM, electronic centralized aircraft monitors, the upper ECAM and the lower ECAM. Now on the pedestal you have 3 MCDUs, which is the multifunction control and display unit. It interacts with the flight management guidance system of this plane. Then you have a panel for the communication. For this video and for the rest of the videos, I will not just go through the communication panel, but I will upload a separate video for this. Then you have the speed brakes for this plane. Then you have the flaps, the parking brake, thrust levers, and the control to set the pitch of the plane. Now what I'll do is this, that before I begin, I will just make a flight plan in the Simbrief, because this is Enable's plane and it needs a Simbrief account, and you have to make a flight plan over there. So let's go and make a flight plan over there, and if you want to skip this part, you can just skip it and you can just watch the next section. Now in the Simbrief, you can make your account and you can just make a flight plan over here and connect it with the plane, and then you can just import the flight plan. But there is one catch for the Simbrief, is the ARAC cycle. It's actually a database which has the information of all the runways and the arrival procedures, the departure procedures, airways, and the waypoints. So it's always updated if you have a paid subscription of Navigraph. But if you don't have a paid subscription for Navigraph, you will see this as red and it will not be updated. So what you can do is this, you can just have a 1-month subscription, update the cycle, and then maybe you can cancel it, because once the ARAC cycle is updated, I think it remains valid for the next 6 months or maybe even a year. So this is one trick that you can do. Anyhow, so for this page, if you're not really familiar, I will just take you through all the steps, how you make a flight plan over here. So first of all, you have a departure airport, which is OTHH, Hamad International Airport for Qatar. And then OMDB, which is for Dubai. Now the aircraft type, there are multiple aircraft types for this plane. In the simulator, you have 330-200 and 330-300. So I'm using the 330-300 with the General Electric option. The engine is GE, cost index. Now this is actually a number which determines how much fuel will be burnt during the flight. The higher the number, now more fuel is burned, the plane goes at a high speed, but the range decreases. And the smaller the number, less fuel is burned and the range increases. So for the flights that I do, I always keep it at 80 or 100. It's totally up to you, whatever the number you want to use. Now, if you look at this option, the runways are automatically selected, but you can just change the runways if you want. So let's say for this flight, I want to select runway 34, right? I can always change it. And arrival is runway 30 left. I can just keep it like this. Now the altitude is 25,000 feet for this flight, and that's it. So this is a 1 hour flight. When I'm doing a flight of 1 hour or less than an hour, I go up to 25,000. But if it's more than an hour, then I go for like 35 or 38,000 feet. Because then you have to start the descent. So always have a reasonable altitude for a flight. Now the passengers, I will be carrying full passengers and freight will be full. Or maybe I can just keep it in auto. That's it. And now for the fuel planning, I always carry some extra fuel. So you can change it. Contingency fuel, you can have an extra fuel for the contingency. I always change the reserve. And I carry 45 minutes of extra fuel for all the videos that I do. So you can always have an extra fuel if you want. You can just set it over here. Now you have a flight plan. And if you look at this side of the flight plan, you have different options. You can just change it if you want. And I will just keep the default flight plan that I got from the Simbrief. And if you get this error, just fix it so that you have the proper departure and the arrival procedure. Now this flight plan has got different parts, or rather 4 parts. One is the SID, the starting point is the SID, which is standard instrument departure. And the last one is the STAR, which is standard terminal arrival. And then you have the airways and the waypoints. So alphabetical values are the waypoints and alphanumeric values are the airways. You can look at the airways from this option, and then you can see all the airways are visible. Now I will just give you a little bit of introduction of the SID and the STAR. SID is standard instrument departure. It's actually a procedure the plane actually goes through to fly out of an airport. Right now you can see the first waypoint is LSIM, and it's over here. And these waypoints are not shown over here in this flight plan. So it means that all the waypoints over here, they are part of the SID. They have not only the direction, but also some speed and altitude constraints if there are any. Similarly, for the STAR, you have the last point, VTIB, and after this you will see that there are many waypoints. They're actually part of the STAR, which is standard terminal arrival. So they also have the direction and plus any speed and altitude constraints. That's it. So once you have the flight plan, you can generate it. And once you generate the flight plan, then you can just import it over there in the plane. That's it. Now let's get back to the plane and start this plane from the cold and dark state and configure it for the flight. The flight planning is complete. So now we can start this plane from the cold and dark state. I can press Shift Space to get to this view. Just make sure that before you start this plane, the thrust levers are in the idle position and the engine switches are off. And the engine start switch is also in the middle. And you have the flaps in 0 position or fully retracted. Ground spoilers are disarmed. And plus the speed brakes are also retracted. Then the wipers are also off. That's it. Now you have to get some life in the plane. So first of all, turn on the batteries. If you go over here on the overhead panel, you will see these 3 switches, battery 1, 2, and APU battery. So you should have the power in the plane with the batteries. But obviously, on the ground, you cannot keep on running on the batteries, otherwise the batteries will drain out. So for this, you have to actually, let me just adjust this. So for this, you have to have an external power because, the main source of the power for the plane is from the engines. And right now at the ground, there is no power from the engines as the engines are off. So that's why I just connect the external power. And now the plane is up. There is another thing that you have to do. Just look at these 3 knobs over here on the overhead panel. This is actually ADIRS, which is Air Data Initial Reference System. This is a system which provides GPS coordinates to the flight management guidance system. So it has to be in this position nav so that the plane knows where it is. It will take almost like 6 to 7 minutes for the alignment to complete. I think you can just wait for the messages to disappear. Yes, 6 minutes. So if you go to the electronic flight bag or the EFB, you will see that the iris alignment time is set to real. You can also change it to fast, which will take around about 2 to 3 minutes, and instant, it will be done instantly. Now, in order to get the flight plan from the Simbrief, you should have the Simbrief pilot ID over here. Don't enter the username, it will not work. You have to enter the pilot ID. You can get it from the account settings in the Simbrief. Now, for the rest of the options, I will just take you through all these options once I'm configuring this plane for the flight. Now go to the dashboard and get the flight plan from the Simbrief. That's it. So departure is Hamad International Airport and arrival, Dubai International Airport. And you have the weather for both of the airports. Now this is the operational flight plan. It is generated by Simbrief. There is this tutorial on the Simbrief site where you can just go and learn everything about operational flight plan, how to read it. For this video, I will not go into the details, but I will just tell you all the important things that you need to know in order to configure this plane for the flight. Then you have a tab for the ground services. You can get the jetway, the catering, and the luggage. And you will see that it's all there. You can plus open the other doors if you want. Now for the payload, let's get it from the Simbrief. And now you have the 0 fuel weight and the fuel. You can do it like instantly, otherwise it will take some time. So zero fuel weight is the plane's weight without the fuel, but includes passengers and cargo. And you have the live gross weight, which is including everything, the fuel, the passengers, and the cargo, and plus the weight of the plane. This is known as the dry weight, without anything. And that's it. Now you have center of gravity. This will be used for the takeoff performance calculation. That's it. And now you have panel states. You can just change the state of the plane. From the if I click this, the plane will go in the dark and cold and dark state on GPU, which the plane's state is right now. And if I click this, then it will go straight away to APU, and this will be ready for takeoff. All the engines on it, everything. Now for the takeoff, let's get the runway. So in the operational flight plan, if you go down, you will see this complete flight plan with the SID and the star, then all the waypoints and the airways. So it's 34 right. So for the takeoff, 34 right, and just sync it. That's it. You have the wind, outside temperature, and the altimeter. This is actually the barometric pressure. You have to enter the barometric pressure because the plane measures the altitude based on this barometric pressure, this reading. So that's why you have to adjust the altimeter, because you want to get the correct readings. Then weight has to be entered over here in tons. So the total weight of the plane is 165 tons or 165,000 kilograms. So let's enter 165 and that's it. Air conditioning will be on, anti-ice will be off. And I'm not forcing toga. Toga is actually take off and go around. This is the setting on the thrust levers. This is actually full thrust. So the plane actually takes off at a reduced thrust, because if the plane can take off at a reduced thrust, why you need full? This will save the engine's life and plus the fuel. So that's why I will not force toga. Now this is actually the temperature for the flex to temp. This is actually a false temperature which is given to the flight management guidance system. And as per this, the thrust is calculated because you have a long runway. You can just take off with a less or reduced thrust. Then there are three speeds, V1, VR, and V2. So V1 is the speed before which you can just decide whether you want to take off or not. But after this speed, you have to take off. This is the speed at which you will be pulling back on the stick and taking this plane up in the air. And V2 is the speed that you want to attain after the takeoff, because this is the speed at which the plane can still fly if one engine fails. And then you have the gross weight center of gravity. And this is actually the trim settings for the pitch, whether to pitch up or down during the takeoff. So it is like 4.3 degrees up. So you adjust the elevators in such a way that you get a little bit of lift during the takeoff. That's it. Now this is the MCDU, which is the multifunction control and display unit. So after configuring the EFB, you have to get the flight plan over here. There is a procedure, or what you can say, procedure to configure this MCDU. This is known as the diff strip data. You have to then do initialization, flight plan, secondary flight plan, RadNav, initialization B, and performance. So I will just take you through all these steps. So if you click data, let's get rid of the messages over here by pressing clear. And then you can see the GPS monitor position and everything. So all the data is here, and you can just go through it if you want to see. Now then, for the initialization, this is the main thing. You have to do the flight initialization. Let's get rid of it and edit request, and you will get the flight plan. You have the departure, the arrival, alternate, and that's it. You have the cost index, which we have set to 80, and the cruising altitude, and the outside temperature at the cruising altitude. That's it. Now for the flight plan, you have to select the departure, runway, and the set. So it's 34 right, and if you look at the operational flight plan from here, you will get ALSEM 2E. So let's select this and insert. And now for the arrival, you have Dubai, arrival 30 left, and what is the star? This is VUTEB 3C. So let's select this and insert. And if there is any discontinuity, we will delete it. Let's say over here, it's there is a discontinuity. Clear. Just press this button. Once you see clear, then just press this left soft key, and the discontinuity will disappear. So if you look at the navigation display, you can just scroll through this flight plan, change this option from here. This part of the plane is known as the EFIS, Electronic Flight Instrument System, and you can look at the flight plan. You can scroll through it, and you can just zoom in and zoom out. That's it. And you can see the flight plan is correct. There is no discontinuity and everything is good. So I can just move it back to ARC. That's it. Now, in the MCDU, you have to then look at the secondary flight plan. So this is the secondary flight plan. Over here, you can just copy the active and you get the active flight plan. You can make any changes if you want to make changes over here in the secondary flight plan. And then you can just make it as the active flight plan, which you can do it from here. Then RadNav, just look at the frequencies. If the GPS system fails, you might want to carry out some VR navigation, or you want to carry out some NDV navigation. So that's why it's there. VR actually stands for very high frequency omnidirectional radio, and NDB is non-directional beacon. Before GPS, these were the two things that were used to actually carry out the navigation based on the nav aids on the ground. So the VR is there for Doha, and that's it. Now the ILS frequency right now, it's shown for the Hamad International Airport, but once I'm near Dubai, this frequency will change. Then we have to go to this option init B, and for init B, just go to init, and you can see, you can scroll through different pages. Just press this button, you will come to this page, and over here just get the zero fuel weight and the zero fuel weight center of gravity. Press this button and this information will be here, and then you have the block fuel. Now the trip wind, just get the average wind, just go up, and over here you will see the average wind is 276 degrees and 49 knots. So just enter 49 knots, and all of the fuel calculation will be carried out accordingly. How much for the reserve, how much for the finals, and everything. And then you have the performance. So for the performance, it's really easy. All you have to do is this: just go to this option, takeoff, and send to FMGS, and that's it. Now, confirm to data, just click this and this page will be updated. You have the V1, VR, V2, transition altitude, thrust reduction altitude, and the flaps and flex to trim. Now there are a few things I just want to show you. Just press shift space. Let's go over here. Now for the transition altitude, let me just open the airport chart from here. And this is actually the departure and 34, right? Now you have runway 34, right? Let's look at the transition altitude. If I zoom in, you will see this is mentioned over here, 13,000 feet. It's actually the standard altitude or the barometric pressure is 1013. So above this altitude, you will move to the standard one. But right now, as you are below this altitude, so that's why you have to adjust the altimeter as per the weather that is given to you right now. This is 1019. So you have to enter 1019 over here. So after 13,000 feet, you have to change it to standard. And you just have to bring your cursor over here and you press it and it goes to the standard atmospheric pressure, which is 1013. Now this is the thrust reduction altitude. The plane will take off with this power, and after this altitude 1500, I will reduce the thrust and I will just move the thrust levers to climb. And this altitude is 1500. You can change it. You can set it to 1000 or 1500. So it's up to you. So you can just change it over here. Now the flaps for this takeoff will be set to 1, and the trim settings 4.3 up. You can just move this lever. Right now you cannot do it because the engines are off, the hydraulic systems are not working, so that's why you cannot change it. Otherwise, once we have the engines, then you can change it. So takeoff data uplink. So everything is now good. Just press this button, flight plan, and you will see the flight plan. That's it. Now let's configure the FCU, which is over here. This is known as the flight control unit. This is the panel with the help of which you can interact with the autopilot and you can set different modes for the autopilot. So you have to first of all turn on the flight director, because if the flight director is not on, the plane will not follow the autopilot. So let's turn on the flight director on the left side and on the right side. That's it. So now it's on. And let's set the altitude. I will set it to 25,000 feet. So right now, you will see that instead of the numbers, now you can see these 3 dots and plus a circle. It means that everything is now in the manage mode. Now this plane has, for the autopilot, it has got 2 modes, the manage mode and the selected mode. In the manage mode, whatever you have in the flight plan, the plane will actually follow it. The speed, if there is any speed constraint, let's say below 10,000 feet, you cannot go more than 250 knots. So the speed will be automatically restricted to 250. And after that, 10,000, you can just go up to 280, 320, whatever the speed you want. But this will be as per the flight plan, which is over here. You can see the speed is shown and plus the altitude. So the plane will actually follow these constraints for the speed and for the altitude, and then it will climb up to 25,000 feet. So this is related to the speed and the vertical speed. Now for the lateral navigation, it's also in the manage mode. Whatever you have the flight plan, whether to go left or right, this will be carried out automatically. But then you can go in the selected mode and then you can select the heading yourself. So I will just keep it in the manage mode. That's it. Now we have to adjust the altimeter. The reading was 1019. So let's set it to 1019 on both of the sides. Now this option can also be changed from here. So you can see link instruments, captain and first officer. So if I click this option, then if I make changes over here, it will be made over there as well. So let's keep it like this. I will fly it like this. Okay, that's it. Now everything is good. We have configured the MCDU, the EFB is there. Now the fueling is complete, as I did an instant fueling. So now I can turn on the seatbelt signs. You can see these switches over here. No smoking signs, I can turn them on. And plus I can arm the emergency exit lights. That's it. Now as I'm going to start the engines, so that's why I have to turn on the beacon and the nav and logo. So the nav and logo is on and the beacon is also on. I will just step out of the plane and show you the nav lights, if we can see it. It's not visible. Maybe. Let me change the time. Very dim, red light. It's over here. And you can see this green light. So if any other plane is looking at this plane from this angle, it will know, especially in the night, that this plane is going toward this right side. So that's why the green light is over here. And if any other plane sees a red light in the night, especially, it will know that the plane is going towards its left side. And then you have lights at the back, so it means you're looking at the plane from the back. And you have the beacon. This is actually a light, which is a red light blinking over here on the top of the plane, which tells the ground staff that you're going to start the plane. So this beacon remains on throughout the flight, and plus the nav lights also remain on throughout the flight. And the strobe, I will keep it to auto. This is actually white, very bright white blinking light, which is on once the plane is on the runway or takes off, and it remains on throughout the flight and once the plane lands, and this light is then no longer required. So it's automatically controlled with this feature, so keep it at auto, but if you want to control it yourself, you can also keep it over here. That's it. Now it's time to turn on the APU. The APU is a generator at the back of the plane, which actually provides power to the plane, because right now I will be going with the pushback, so that's why I have to disconnect the GPU. So we should have some power in the plane, and the APU will provide this power. This is actually the auxiliary power unit. So let's turn on the master switch and just wait for 3-4 seconds, and then you can just start the APU. I can also turn on the fuel pumps, which are over here. That's it. And turn on the crew supply for the oxygen. And now you will see on the lower ECAM. ECAM is, I think I haven't told you, it's electronic centralized aircraft monitor. You have two screens, the upper one and the lower one. So now it will show you that APU is running, but right now there is no power generated by the APU, and plus APU also provides pressurized air for the engine startup. So there is no APU bleed as well. EGT is the exhaust gas temperature, and % is the revolution. So once the APU is available, you will see the voltage appearing over here. So the APU is now available, as you can see, and it will also show you this option, available. So APU is now available. With this, I can turn on the APU bleed, and external power is no longer required, so I can disconnect the external power. With this, I can go to the ground services, and I can toggle the GPU as it's not required. That's it. Just toggle the jetway and make sure all the doors are closed. That's it. You can also look at the doors from here. This option, door, and you can see all the doors are closed. It automatically actually appeared. So actually the Airbus system, it's very clever. It knows what kind of state the plane is in right now, and it just keeps on showing you different information. It's really a very nice, clever system in the Airbus. So that's why it's advisable. to keep an eye over here on the upper ECAM and the lower ECAM. That's it. Another thing that I can do is this. I can press this option constraint and I will get all the altitude and the speed constraints on the navigation display. That's it. Now as the APU is available, ground power is disconnected, everything is good. Another thing, just want to tell you that in the Airbus planes, if all the buttons are black, it means everything is good. And if anything is white, you have to just get rid of it. And you see this option fault. This is actually for the generator for the engines. So right now they're showing fault, but once the engines are on, then this will also disappear. That's it. So let's now call for the pushback and release the parking brakes. That's it. Now this tab has the option for the pushback, as you can see, pushback aft. So just press it. It will turn, I think, automatically towards right or towards the left. It does this. Let's wait for it. It's getting connected. Yes, it is. Yeah. So press aft again and then it will start to go straight. But I have to turn right. So now I can turn on the engine. You can see the switch, just move it to ignition start. I will just do it from the controller I have. And then first of all, start the engine 2. So just turn on this switch, engine 2. And now engine 2 start. As you can see, it's moving. Now I can just turn right. You can see the numbers changing over here. So just to save time, I will also turn on the engine 1. So I can just engage now the parking brakes and you can see the engines are now running. You can just go over here and go to this option, electric, and see whether you're getting the voltage from the engines or not. You can see avail was showing. So it means now we have power from the engines. So I can turn off the APU and plus the APU bleed, no longer required. Now let's move this switch to taxi. You need lights and runway turn off lights. These are actually lights over here. Let me change the weather and you will see the runway turn off lights on the left and right and the taxi lights, they're on. And you can also move this switch back to norm. So that's it. APU is now off and anything else? No, everything is looking good. Now over here you will see this weather radar. Just make sure that it's on. Just move this proximity warning system to auto and move this to on. That's it. So now the weather system is also on. And set the flaps to position 1 for the takeoff. I have to do it from here. And the transponder is on. If it's not, then it's off right now. So you have to turn it on and set it to auto instead of standby, and that's it. And plus, if you're doing a flight with the ATC, then you have to enter the squawk code provided by the ATC over here. And over here, you have to actually move it to either TA or RA, traffic avoidance. It's TA. So right now, you can see no issue is there. Yes. Now, auto brake set to max. So this is the auto brake for the rejected takeoff. So you have to set it to max. So before V1 speed, if you want to abort the takeoff, then this braking system will come into action and it will stop the plane. And we have to arm the ground spoilers. These are basically on the wing, they also get activated if you want to reject the takeoff. And I can do this takeoff configuration check. Just press this button. Right, no, I don't think so. It will disappear. It will disappear in some time. That's it. So now the plane is ready for the takeoff and for the flight. So now if you look at the screens, I will be taking off from runway 34 right. And after this, I have to get up to this altitude, 500 feet, because at this point, 500 feet and above is the altitude required. Then at this point, more than 2,500 and the speed 230 knots. The plane is right now in the manage mode, so I really don't have to worry about it. The autopilot will automatically take care of it. But during the flight, I will tell you how you can switch between the manage mode and the selected mode, and how you can just fly this plane in different modes. Right now you can see this part of the prime flight display. This is actually the FMA, flight mode initiator. So whatever the flight mode this plane is in, you will get all this information over here on the FMA. Right now flight director 1 and 2 is active. That's it. And navigation and climb is armed. This is the V1 speed, 136 knots, and after this I have to take this plane up in the air, pull back on the stick. This is the speed the plane will try to achieve just right after the takeoff, because this is the V2 speed. The plane has to be at this speed in case if one engine fails and you just want to come back and land again. That's it. I will move the thrust levers to this option, flex to temp, for the takeoff, and that's it. So everything is looking good so far. If you look at the upper E cam, everything is good. Auto brake is set to max, signs are on, cabin ready, spoilers are armed, flaps are set to take off, and takeoff configuration is normal. So let's release the parking brakes. First of all, I will just give 50% of power. I will just move it to this point, and then I will give thrust and release the brakes. So let's move it here. Wait for the engines to spool, release the brakes, and then move the thrust levers to flex. So flex to temp is 97%. You can see flex is also locked. V1, VR and this is V1, VR and V2 are the same. So now V1 and this is VR. Let's rotate and take this plane up in the air. Try not to go more than this 10 or 15 degrees. That's it. Now positive rate of climb, gears up. Now with this I can activate the autopilot and then just take you through a few things. As you can see, this is the speed. You can retract the flaps and the slats. But right now the speed is reducing, so I will not retract the slats. And lever, let's move it to climb. Crossed 1,500. That's it. Now the speed is increasing. So above this speed, I can retract the flaps. This is the green dot speed, the speed at which the plane can fly without any flaps and slats. Now you can see as the plane is in the manage mode, for the speed, for the heading, and for the altitude. So the autopilot is doing all its job. Over here there is also a constraint. The plane should be at 4,000 feet or below, and the speed is 250 knots. So now you can see the plane is actually leveling off at 4,000 feet because over here there's a constraint, and the speed is 230 knots over here at this point. You can look at the flight plan over here in the MCDU. If you see this star with the magenta color, it means the plane will be following this constraint for the altitude and for the speed. But if it's not in magenta color, then it means the plane will miss it. But right now, the plane has leveled off at 4,000 feet because over here the constraint is above 2,500 feet and over here less than 4,000. So it has just leveled off at 4,000. If I bring up the electronic flight bag, you will also see these constraints over here. So now the plane will turn right, heading 100 degrees. After this point, the speed should also increase. And now you can see the speed is now 250 knots because below 10,000 feet, the speed should be 250 or less than that. And as you can see, this arrow is appearing over here. It means that after this, the plane will start to climb again. Now let's see where this top of descent is right now over here. So this is the top of descent, and we have another constraint for the altitude over here, flight level 210, which is 21,000 feet. At this point should be at 21,000 feet or below. LSIM, it's over here. That's it. So as we have a very short time, so maybe after this point I can just like ignore this altitude constraint, and I can just take you through the different modes of the autopilot of this plane. Now first of all, I will set the altitude to 10,000 feet, and I will just tell you the difference between the manage mode for the altitude and the selected mode. So right now the plane is climbing in the manage mode. So I had set this altitude to 25,000 feet, but you can see it's following all the constraints because it's in the manage mode. But if I just take it in the selected mode, you can see now the plane is in the open climb mode, which means that it will not follow any altitude constraint. So this is actually the selected mode or the open climb mode. And now you have this altitude on your screen in cyan color, 10,000 feet. And you can see this arrow also, which tells you that by this point the plane will be at this given altitude. And plus you also see this magenta dot, which means the speed will also increase because at this point the plane will be at 10,000 feet, so the speed can be more than 250 knots. So this is the manage mode for the altitude and the selected mode. Now there is also another option, vertical speed. So right now you can see that the plane is giving priority to the speed. It's locking the speed, but it's changing the vertical speed. So the climb rate keeps on changing throughout the flight. As the plane goes up, the air gets thinner, so that's why you cannot have a very high vertical speed. It has to be reduced. But you can take control of the vertical speed. If you look at this knob, you bring your cursor over here and you press it. Now you have the control for the vertical speed. So now instead of the open climb, vertical speed has started to appear. So if I right now want to have a very high vertical speed or aggressive vertical speed, because let's say I want to climb up to a certain altitude in the shortest time and the distance, so I can change it. It's not letting me actually do it because the speed is getting compromised. So this is actually what I wanted to show. And now the plane is leveling off at 10,000. Maybe I can just like again go up to 20,000, and let me just adjust it again to 4,000, and let's see what happens. Because in this mode, the priority is given to the vertical speed, and the speed is no longer the priority. So you can see now the plane is aiming for 4,000 feet per minute, the climb rate, and you can see the speed is reducing. So you can climb at this rate, but obviously the speed will keep on reducing, and at some point the plane will stall. So that's why you have to reduce the vertical speed, and you have to keep it in such a way, or adjust it in such a way that the speed keeps on increasing. So this is the vertical speed mode. And now you can see at this vertical speed, the plane is not only climbing, but also the speed is increasing. So you can just go back to the manage mode. Just bring your cursor over here. As soon as you see the up arrow, just press it and the plane is now in the manage mode. Now you can see the QNH is blinking. You have to adjust the altimeter. Just go to standard. Both of the sides, it's standard. And over here you can also set it to standard for the secondary display of the PFD. Now you can see that the plane is aiming for 305 knots, and plus the vertical speed is now 1,100 feet per minute. That's it. Now you can also adjust the speed. Right now it's in the manage mode. You can bring your cursor. As soon as you see the down arrow, you can just go into the manage mode, selected mode. So let's say if I reduce the speed, now you can see that the speed will reduce, and the climb rate has increased. So right now the priority is obviously the speed, but the autopilot is actually adjusting the vertical speed in such a way that the speed reduces, and once the plane is at this speed, then the vertical speed will also reduce, and the vertical speed then will be adjusted so that the speed doesn't go below 280 or more than this. Let's wait for it. Now you can see the speed is now at 280 knots and the vertical speed is getting adjusted. So in the vertical speed mode, the priority was given to the vertical speed, and in this mode, the priority is given to the speed. And that's it. I can just go back to the manage mode. Now for the lateral navigation, right now it's in the manage mode. The plane is following this flight plan. I can bring the cursor over here, and now the plane is in the heading mode. So whatever the current heading of the plane is right now, it's locked over here. Whenever you just bring your cursor here, now you can see the flight plan is appearing as a dotted line, and the plane is deviating from the flight plan. As now I'm flying in the manage mode, and you can see the deviation is appearing over here, 0.3 nautical miles towards the right side. I can bring the cursor over here. As soon as I see the up arrow, I can press it, and the plane will be back in the manage mode, and it will start to follow this flight plan. So let's go back to the heading mode, and let's deviate from the flight plan. Now the deviation is 1 nautical mile towards the right side. And let's see, if I go back in the manage mode for the lateral navigation, you will see that the plane is not going back. And right now, the plane is in the open climb mode, as I have deviated from the flight plan. So that's why for the climb, there is no manage mode. It's already in the open climb mode. It automatically goes to this point, and plus heading and nav. So right now the plane is in the heading mode. I want to go back to the managed heading mode or the navigation mode, which is armed. But right now the plane is not following the flight plan. In order to do this, I have to change the heading and intercept this line. So now you can see that the heading is shown, and plus you see this circle, which means that till the time the plane intercepts this line, it will keep on flying in the heading mode, and once it intercepts, then it will automatically go into the managed mode for the lateral navigation. So let's wait for it. Maybe I can just do it more. Let's wait for it. So that's how you fly this plane. In the heading mode, let me adjust it, and let's keep it over here, 60 degrees. Now I'm going to intercept this line. Deviation is 1.2 nautical miles towards the right side from the flight plan. And now you can see this nav has started to appear, which means the plane is now in the manage mode for the lateral navigation. And it has now started to follow the flight plan. And now you can see that 60 also has disappeared from here. So now it's in the manage mode. Now I can climb up to 25,000 feet again in the manage mode as the plane is following it. So that's why I am in the manage mode. I can just ignore this altitude constraint because, as I've told you before, it's a very short flight, and soon the top of descent will be near, as you can see. So before this, I just wanted to show you one thing. So now the plane is climbing, and if I bring my cursor over here, and once I see the up arrow, if I click it, you will see vertical speed 0, and the plane will level off. So if at any point you want to level off, you can do this. So let's say at this point I should be below 21,000 feet. The plane was going for 25,000 feet, but I've leveled it off at 20,600 feet. And maybe after this, I can again bring the cursor over here. As soon as I see the up arrow, I can press it and the plane will climb to 25,000 feet. Let's see. As I've crossed it, I can just go back to manage mode and the plane will start to climb again. And by this point, the plane will be at 25,000 feet. That's it. So this was a short video. Just wanted to show you that how the manage mode and the selected mode work for this plane. As the plane is above 10,000 feet, I can disarm the ground spoilers. I should have done it before. Just turn off the lights. They're no longer required. And that's it. Strobe is set to auto. Beacon is on. Nav and logo is on. I can also turn off the logo. And that's it. Right now the nav light is on in this setting. So hopefully this was a useful video for you. Now you can just change and the modes for the autopilot for this plane, and then you can just fly this plane on your own. This selected mode for the heading is very interesting once you are flying an approach which has a discontinuity, or if you're flying with the ATC, then it's really fun flying this plane on the selected mode for the heading and the managed mode for the lateral navigation. Soon I will be near the top of descent, so that's why I have to start the descent right now at this point. But before this, we have to configure the MCDU for the approach. Let me just change the time because due to the sun, you cannot see it. So I think it's a good position. Okay. So first of all, let's go to this option performance and press this next phase, and you have the approach. Now over here, you have to enter the QNH, the barometric pressure, the temperature, the wind, transition altitude, and that's it. So first of all, let's get the QNH. Go to this option, dashboard, and over here, you will see the weather for Dubai, and the QNH is 1019. As you can see, it's over here. So let's enter 1019. Now the temperature for Dubai, it is 26 degrees. Pretty hot nowadays, even in December. And the wind is 310 degrees, 11 knots. This is the direction and this is the speed, 310, 11. That's it. And the transition altitude, it is an altitude at which I will be changing the barometric pressure from the standard to the given one, which is 1019. So let's open the EFB, and for Dubai International Airport, let's get the transition altitude. 30 left is the runway for the landing, and it will be ILS 30 left. So it is 13,000 feet. So let's enter 13,000. That's it. Now the minimums for this landing, there are different categories for the ILS approach. If you are a beginner, I will just take you through all these three, or rather four categories. This is actually the precision of the ILS equipment of the plane. So this plane is capable of carrying a category 3 DME, or the ILS approach. Category 3 is the highest level of precision. Then you have category 2, which is lower than category 3, and so on and so forth. A DME actually stands for distance measuring equipment. So it's actually a ground-based navigation aid, the localizer, which you will be tracking for the ILS, and get the distance. So that's why it is a DME. So once you're near the runway, you will even start to see the distance over here on the primary flight display. Now for the category 3 DME, you have the settings in radio and baro. So there are two ways to actually get the minimums. This is actually an altitude at which you will be hitting this call out minimums, and you have to decide whether you want to go with the landing or not, because the instruments are aligning you with the runway and you're following the glide slope. So that's why you have to make sure that you are following the glide slope properly, you're going to land at the right point, and plus you are aligned with the runway. If you're not, then at this decision height, you just go for a go around, or call it a missed approach. So you can get the minimum altitude based on the radio readings. It's actually radio is actually a technique in which the plane sends radio signals to the ground and it gets the altitude. And in baro, you get the altitude based on the barometric readings. So for the radio, you only use if the ground is even. If the ground is not even, obviously you'll not get good readings. But over here for this runway, you can see for the category 3 and 2, the minimums is in radio, and for category 1 and localizer DME, it's in barometric pressure. So for radio, you can set 75 feet, 0 to 75. Between this, it's given to you by the company. But over here, you can see for 2, this is 100 RA. So 100 feet above the runway, you will hear this call out minimums, and you can decide whether you want to go with it or not. So let's keep it at 100 for radio, and that's it. But if you want to hear this call out at 260 feet above the runway, then you go with the baro, 260. But at one time, either you can have baro or the radio. That's it. Now you can see it started to appear over here. Now, in order to intercept the localizer, which is over here, which actually tells you whether you aligned with the runway or not, and in order to intercept this glide slope, you have to be at 2,000 feet. So once I will start the descent, I will descend to 2,000 feet over here. That's it. Let's zoom in as the top of descent is near. So that's why I have to start the descent. This circle is 10 nautical miles, this is 20, and this is 30. So it's almost like 20 nautical miles away. That's it. So now you have the altitude, target altitude for the descent. But I will be descending in the management mode, so that's why the autopilot will follow all the constraints, if there are any, during the descent. We can just look at these constraints over here on the screen. As you can see at this point, the plane should be below 12,000 feet, or at 12,000 feet, as it's minus. So 12,000 below is acceptable. So almost like 50 nautical miles away. And that's it. Now, at this point, where you will be intercepting the glide slope, this is D6.1, which means it will be, the distance is 6.1 nautical miles to the runway. This is 4 nautical miles, this is 2, and this is the runway. And you can see the speed constraints are also shown. At this point, maximum 185 knots, but the autopilot will automatically adjust the speeds accordingly. I'm going for 30 right or 30 left. Let me just check. Is 30 right or 30 left? I've been looking at 30 left. 30 left. That's good. I got a bit confused. So as now the top of descent is near, so I can just start the descent. Just bring the arrow over here, cursor over here as soon as you see the up arrow, and just press it and the descent will start. That recording the videos for YouTube can be tricky at times. These small things happen. So now the descent has started. You can see the vertical deviation indicator has started to appear on the prime flight display. This is this green dot. If this green dot is in the middle, it means the plane is following the vertical path. But if this dot is above this, then it means the plane is below the vertical path. If it's below, then it's okay. But if this dot is over here, it means you're above the vertical path, which can be an issue because then you have to have a very high descent rate in order to bring this vertical deviation indicator in the middle, due to which it will be difficult to control the speed. So that's why right now everything is okay. And now you can see more constraints have started to appear. 12,000 below and below, 11,000 and below. At this point, 8,000 and above, 7,000 and above, and so on and so forth. Plus, if there is any speed constraint, the plane will follow it. Now, another thing that I will do is this, that, below 10,000 feet, I will activate this approach phase. If you go over here, in the performance, you will see activate approach phase. So, in this approach phase, the plane's speed will reduce and it will go up to this speed, which is the approach speed 132 knots with full flaps. I can also change it to flap 3 settings, which is 137 knots, or full flaps. So I will be going with the full flaps landing. So that's why I will just keep it like this. So as soon as I will activate this approach phase, the plane will actually target this speed 132 knots. But it will not go below the green dot speed. It is the speed at which the plane can fly without any slats and flaps. But in order to go below that speed, then I will start extending the flaps. And eventually when I will have the full flaps, the plane will be at 32 knots. So this is how I will control the speed, and I will show it to you. So right now you can see the vertical deviation. This indicator is in the middle, so it means the plane is following the descent profile. You can also look at the vertical deviation over here on the screen. If you go to the progress, you can see it. So it's 0 feet. The plane, or 0. So it means everything is good. As the plane is now below 10,000 feet, as you can see, I can turn on the lights for the landing. That's it. And let's turn on the wing light also. So you can see that still the plane is following the descent profile. So the descent management is really good. There are a few things we have to check. Now go to this option RadNav, and over here just make sure that you have the ILS frequency, which is 111.3. It's there. And if it's not there, you can enter it, but you cannot enter it like this. Let's say 111.3. If I enter, I think it takes this value. Maybe I can just try another thing. Yeah, you can see it doesn't take this frequency. You have to enter the identifier. So it's IDBW. You have to enter it like this. Let me just go back and select another runway, and let's try entering it. So the identifier for the other runway, for the 30 right, will be different. I select 30 right. Let's wait for the chart to load. It's IDBR 110.9. So if I enter 110.9, you can see it will not take it. So you have to enter IDBR for this. And then it will take. So just make sure you do this. I just actually got this question on my YouTube channel, so I thought I'll just cover it as well. And the course is 299 degrees, and it's correct. If it's not, then you have to just enter the course as well. And now I will be going for the autoline. So I will now turn on the LS, and it will start to show me the frequency of the localizer. Let's go back, 30 left, select this, and the distance to it. Right now the distance is not correct, obviously, as I'm going to cross this runway. I will go to this point and then come back and land. But it's good, it's here. And plus I will also start to see the indicators for the ILS approach and landing, the lateral alignment and the vertical path of the glide slope, which is 3 degrees. Descent. So right now you can see the plane is following the vertical path. So everything is good now. Let's wait for this point, and then I will just take you from here. Now the runway is almost 16 nautical miles away, as you can see it over here. And at this point, the speed should be 185 knots or less. Right now you can see the plane is approaching the green dot speed. I haven't activated, by the way, the approach phase. So I can even do it right now and activate the approach. So now the speed will be 130 knots. But at this point, I should be below 185 knots. So for this, I have to extend the flaps so that the speed can go below this point. And if the speed is not reducing, I can also activate the speed brakes. Now you can see full, and the speed is now reducing. And the altitude over here should be more than 2000 or 2000. Now I can disengage the speed brakes. I can arm the ground spoilers for the landing, and I can set the auto brakes to medium. Actually, these speed brakes or the spoilers, ground spoilers, they're on the wings. So they actually, like this, if I just activate them, so during the landing when I will activate the reverse thrust, they will also come into action, which provide some support in reducing the speed of the plane. So reverse thrust will be activated by pulling the levers all the way back, and then then pulling these levers up. I've configured them on my Thrustmaster TCA quadrant. If it is not, then you can press, if I'm not wrong, yes, F on your keyboard. It's the default setting for the Microsoft Flight Simulator. If you keep on pressing F, the thrust levers will go all the way back, and then at some point the reverse thrust will also be activated. Now I can further extend the flaps, as the runway is 8.6 nautical miles away, and at this point I can activate the approach phase. Now once I will activate the approach phase, this plane will actually do two things. It will first of all align itself with the localizer for the lateral navigation. As you can see, this diamond will move in the middle, and then it will wait for this diamond to come in the middle as well over here. And now you can see the plane is at 2000 feet. It's leveled off, but as soon as this diamond will come over here, the plane will again start to follow this glide slope. So that's why you activate approach. It's really useful. It carries out both the lateral navigation and plus it follows the glide slope. Now 6.6 nautical miles away, the runway. I can lower the gears now and extend the flaps. So landing gear down, cabin check, and flaps landing. I will just go with the full flaps. With this, I will also turn on the autopilot. I will try to do an auto land with this plane. Trying it, by the way, for the first time in the simulator. So I'm not really sure how it will behave. So the gears down, that's it. And let's take the flaps to position full. Now, as I've activated autopilot 1 and 2, Yeah, just remember one more thing, that you have to activate approach in order to activate the auto land. If the approach is not active, then you cannot do this auto land. So if you look at the FMA, you will see category 3 dual. So it means dual means both the autopilots are active, and now you can go for an auto land. And that's it. The plane is now following the glide slope, and instead of the nav, now the plane is following the localizer, which is a ground-based navigation device. It's over here. You can see this runway also has the PAPI lights, 2 red, 2 white, which means the plane is following the glide slope. You can also move this knob to LS, and you can see whether the plane is aligned with the runway. This is also a good view for the ILS, and is it really following the glide slope? So you can also move it to this position. Now, just right at the runway, 30 feet above the runway, this autopilot will also perform flare, in which the plane will actually pitch up the nose, the autopilot, and then it will land at the runway. At this time, you have to bring the thrust levers all the way to idle, and then you have to activate the reverse thrust. Let's get rid of this shot. It's no longer required. Everything is good now. So if you look at the ECAM, everything is good. All the lights are on.
500.
Just 500 feet to go. Now you can see the plane is now in the land mode. Although the plane is following the glide slope, but the PAPI lights are showing it slightly high. I think it's more towards the right side of the runway. Let's wait for it. Just trying auto land for the first time.
100.
Minimum. So now this is the minimum altitude. So plane is aligned. I can land. That's okay. But at this point, you can decide whether you want to go with the landing or not. Retard, just bring the levers to idle, and now I can activate the reverse thrust. You can see the speed is reducing below 80 knots. I can deactivate the reverse thrust, and then the braking will come into action. Now the thrust lever is in the idle position. I'm not doing anything, it's stopping itself. And now I can apply brakes and disarm auto brakes, and that's it. Now retract the flaps, and with this you can just exit the runway as soon as you can. And that's how you land this plane and perform an ILS approach and landing. Let me just press this button to get rid of this error. If you have any questions, you can ask me in the comment section, or if you want to add anything to this video, the comment section is there for you. Thank you very much for staying with me. Have a nice day. Hope to see you soon.